Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Was the massive $1.9 trillion stimulus, the American Rescue Plan, a big waste of money? Remember, this is the big legislative achievement of the Biden administration, and the Biden administration has bigger plans with the Build Back Better agenda, which is going to be at least $3 trillion. So this is a major victory for the Biden administration, but it does carry some political and some economic risks. The political risks are alienating all the Republicans because the Republicans are very upset. I can tell you that. And the economic risks are the rising debt of our country. Our children, our grandchildren are going to have to pay for this. I've actually been listening to some interviews from different lawmakers. I'll show you some interviews, some clips from Senator Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia. We'll also hear from Senator Lindsey Graham, the Republican from South Carolina. We'll hear what he had to say. He was not very happy, as you can imagine. And we'll also hear Senator Blackburn not only said this was a blue state bailout, she also said that Democrats wanted people to suffer. Now, what was interesting is she got pushback on both those points from the Fox News anchor who pointed out that, hey, do you want to say Democrats want people to suffer? And you know that your state is getting billions of dollars. Your state is getting $6 billion and Texas is getting significantly more. In this episode of Ignition Time, we'll ask the question, did the American Rescue Plan waste trillions of dollars? Now, I want our viewers and subscribers to know that for me personally, I want help to go to those who need it the most. I don't think checks should be going to individuals who don't need it, which is why Senator Joe Manchin worked hard to try and target the checks. Now, I've seen a lot of comments from our viewers and subscribers comparing Senator Joe Manchin with the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell. I have to tell you, there's Mitch McConnell. What's up, Mitch? And there's Joe Manchin. There's a big difference between Joe Manchin and Mitch McConnell. Senator Mitch McConnell would not even allow a vote on the floor of the Senate of the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. And remember, there was a $1.9 trillion plan that was offered last year to House Speaker Pelosi, and the Senate Majority Leader at that time, Mitch McConnell, didn't even want to bring it to a vote on the floor of the Senate. Now, what Joe Manchin wants to do, on the other hand, is simply make sure that there is more targeting. And he basically said, hey, I'm a simple guy from West Virginia and I want more targeting. Also, before I show you segments with Senator Joe Manchin, I do want to say that on the topic of waste, I am 100% of the belief that no money should be wasted. But when we are talking about a package that is almost $2 trillion in a country with over 300 million people, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people getting some form of stimulus from the government. There is going to be some waste. There is absolutely going to be some waste. The only way there'll be no waste is if you live in a special place called La La Land. Let's take a look at the first segment with Senator Joe Manchin, where he supports the American Rescue Plan, and where he said that he voted for the American Rescue Plan, and he pointed out that COVID relief is not just vaccines. We need money for the recovery well into 2022. He's highlighting the fact that it's important for us to be responsible with the money, stagger the money over several years so that there is no risk of inflation and overheating the economy, because inflation presents a whole different range of problems. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Joe Manchin. Since we have a lot of video segments to cover in this particular episode, we'll speed up the segments at 1.5x speed. So all the segments have been slightly sped up. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Joe Manchin.
But let's talk about the bill and this question of the amount of aid that you gave. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office came out with an estimate that the economy was down only $600 to $700 billion because of the pandemic, and yet this bill gives $1.9 trillion, triple almost what the CBO says you really need. That raises the question, one, is this bill going to overheat the economy and create inflation? And two, as you point out, it isn't all just this year. It's out 4 or 5. Some of the money doesn't get spent till 2030. So is this really COVID relief? Or is this a Democratic wish list?
No. COVID relief is more than just the vaccines. The vaccines is the most urgent thing we can do. Keeping people able to stay in their homes is absolutely as urgent as anything else we do. And we did all of that. COVID relief means, are you going to be able to move on, have the economy move on as strong as you want to, not have a lapse in that? That's why we were able to target it and move it out some. I'm hoping the economists look at that too. President Biden was concerned because he was there in 2009. I was not. I was still governor at that time when they did the Recovery Act, and they thought they didn't do it quick enough. I basically reminded people that was a financial collapse. This is a healthcare pandemic. It's much different. We will come out of this. I want to make sure the workforce is ready to go too, Chris, and that's why we wanted to make sure that we did basically just everything at one time. time. We're going to make sure that we're recovering in 2022 also, so we don't have a lapse or a relapse.
Now, in the next segment, Manchin was specifically asked to address the debt. He said he was very concerned about the growing debt in the country because we are well over $28 trillion in debt right now, and the debt will continue to increase with the American Rescue Plan. This money is going to have to pay it back at some point in the future. Manchin says something very important. He says common sense is not so common in Washington, and he did say that he's extremely concerned about the debt. Let's roll the tape and hear from Joe Manchin, the conservative Democrat from West Virginia.
But what about this argument that the economy is only down but it's down $700 billion and you're spending $1.9 trillion and that you may end up overheating the economy and causing inflation, sir?
Well, I hope we don't. I don't think we will because, again, I've said we spread it out. We didn't throw it all at one time. If they're saying we're going to spend $1.9 trillion on top of what we already spent in this 1 year, there might be some concerns about that, or there should be, I'm sure. I'm concerned now more about the debt that we're accumulating, and we've been accumulating through all different types of administrations. It's time to get our financial house in order. I'm in that moderate middle, and common sense is not real common sometimes in Washington, but we can come together, but we have to. So we're watching this very carefully, but I can assure you, we have helped every segment of society right now, more so than ever before with this piece of targeted legislation. And I'm going to be monitoring and watching as close as long as my...
Now, you've heard me talk about Manchin earlier on our channel, the position of power, the position of significance he has, because he can single-handedly stall the Biden administration's agenda if he chose to. Now, Joe Manchin was asked specifically, how does it feel like, being in such a position of power? And he said something very interesting. He said, I've watched power destroy good people because they abused it. Basically, Manchin is saying, hey, I'm not the kind of guy that abuses power. Hey, folks, so you can decide what you choose to believe. And the Fox News anchor also pointed out that Joe Manchin was on 4 news networks today. 4 news networks. He's been all over the news today talking about potentially justifying his position, clarifying his position, however you choose to see it. He's definitely all over the news right now. As you can see, he's also been a focus on our channel. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Joe Manchin on his newfound power as potentially the most powerful member in the entire United States Congress, in the House and the Senate, because without him, the Democrats and specifically President Biden are stuck. Let's roll the tape and watch.
Well, let's talk about just Joe, because you have staked out this position and you were doing it in November right after the election. I want to put up some of the positions you've taken breaking with your party. You said early on you would not be the 50th Democrat to end the filibuster. You'd not be the 50th Democrat to pack the Supreme Court. And so far, whether it's the $15 minimum wage or Neera Tanden's nomination, you've broken with your party. You just put up, you just said the quote. I was going to put it up on the screen because you said it before about power and what it can do to people. The question I guess I have, here's the quote. I have watched power destroy people, good people, because they abused it. Look, I love talking to you, Senator, but you are on 4 Sunday shows today, and the question I have is, are you enjoying your position of power maybe a little too much?
I sure hope not. Oh my goodness, then that would be horrible. That's not. No, I want to make sure people understand. I am in that common sense middle. That's who I am. It happened to come down to 50-50. This doesn't happen that often in our political posturing or our governing. And I hope it doesn't come around again for a long time. We need to find a way to work together. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not taking advantage of any moment at all. But if I can seize the moment, make you understand, hold on. We're not going to just blow things up. We're not going to destroy the Senate. The founding fathers decided it would be the most deliberate body, unusual from any other form of government in the world and the history's ever known. Seize the moment and fix what has gone wrong. Why do we go so right and so left? We don't run our lives from the extreme. You always try to find that moderate middle to make decisions, to run your life, to enjoy your family, to make sure that you're able to prosper and move forward. You can't do that from the extremes. That's all. And now we push it apart. Maybe it's social media. I don't know what's doing it. But when people can talk about people without looking them in the eye, shaking their hand and giving them their word, and that's who you are, and stick with that, I don't know, maybe it's old-fashioned West Virginia. It's the way I was raised, Chris.
Now, it's very clear that in the past 24 hours, President Biden picked up the phone and probably called Joe and said, hey, Joe, it's Joe. What's up, man? What do you need to sign the bill? And then I'm guessing the conversation went like this. Joe Manchin said, Mr. President, I just wanted to be more targeted. You got it, Joe. That's probably what happened. Now, let's shift gears and let's talk about Senator Lindsey Graham, the Republican from South Carolina, who said, and I quote, God help us if we don't check and balance the Democrats in 2022. And he outlined a whole bunch of items that were elements of waste in this bill. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not in favor of waste, but it's very easy to cherry pick items, a few $1 million, a few $100 million. And here's something interesting that Senator Lindsey Graham will not tell you. 200 million is 0.0002 trillion. Okay. So again, we have a $1.9 trillion plan. And if you're complaining about 200 million is 0.0002 of 1 trillion. Okay, so when you hear Lindsey Graham complaining, he'll complain of 200 million for this, 300 million for that, but he won't tell you that again, $200 million is 0.0002 of $1 trillion, and this is a $1.9 trillion plan. Now let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina pointing out all the elements in the bill that in his opinion are a waste, and then his comment about God help us if the Democrats continue to control the Senate in 2022. Let's watch.
Senator Lindsey Graham, he is the ranking Republican on the Senate Budget Committee. And Senator, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for being here. Can you take us behind the doors yesterday when this bill passed and what is in it?
Yeah, well, number one, it took 27 hours to pass it. I'm proud of my Republican colleagues for fighting back. But what a difference a year makes, Maria. March of 2020, we passed a $1.9 trillion bill, the same amount of money, 96-0, because we understood the need to fight COVID. A year later, March of 2021, the Democrats have the House, the Senate, and the White House. And what did we tell you? If they get everything, they're going to run us over. This is out of control liberalism. And in this bill, as Kevin said, most of the money's not spent this year. 90% of it's got nothing to do with COVID. But let me give you an example of something that really bothers me. In this bill, if you're a farmer, your loan will be forgiven up to 120% of your loan, not 100%, but 120% of your loan if you're socially disadvantaged, if you're African American, some other minority. But if you're white person, if you're a white woman, no forgiveness. That's reparations. What does that got to do with COVID? So if you're in the farming business right now, this bill forgives 120% of your loan based on your race. These people in the Congress today, the House and the Senate on the Democratic side, are out of control liberals, and God help us all if we don't check and balance them in 2022.
This is just incredible. And we're looking at the list of things that money is being allocated toward, $300 million toward the arts and humanities. I mean, where is this money coming from now that we've got a $28 trillion tab in debt?
Well, it's coming from your children and your grandchildren. It's all borrowed money. There's $200 million for library services. There's over $300 million for the National Endowment of the Humanities and Arts. There's $20 million for native language studies. These all may be good ideas, but they got nothing to do with COVID.
Now let's shift gears to another Republican senator, Senator Marsha Blackburn, who's a Republican from Tennessee. She's very concerned about the debt for future generations. Listen, after I listen to what she says, I have to go to my 5-year-old son and say, hey man, you're going to owe a lot in taxes. And he's like, whatever, Papa. That's what he said to me. I actually said that to him just to see his reaction. But let's focus on Senator Marsha Blackburn. She says this bill is not fair to future generations. Their taxes will go up in the future. Senator Blackburn, I know you're upset, but where were you when you voted in favor of the $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthiest amongst us using the process of budget reconciliation in 2017? Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Marsha Blackburn.
This plan gives those families who are struggling the most the help and the breathing room they need to get through this moment. This plan gives small businesses in this country a fighting chance to survive. And one more thing, this plan is historic. Taken all together, this plan is going to make it possible to cut child poverty in half.
The bill now goes to the House for a vote on Tuesday. So what can we expect? Republican Senator from Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn, joins us now. Senator, good to see you. Thank you for coming on Fox.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Of course. Well, you voted against this bill, as did every other Republican senator, all united in opposition to it. Why did you turn thumbs down?
It's so interesting that all the COVID relief bills that we have passed under Leader McConnell's leadership were done in a bipartisan manner. Every one of them got 90 votes or more. So that shows you the degree of bipartisanship and how very hard Leader McConnell and President Trump and Leader McCarthy had worked to make these bipartisan. And now when the Democrats are in charge, what do? They want party line votes, which is what they got in the House and the Senate. And the reason for that, Eric, is because only 9% of this bill had anything to do with COVID. The other 91% is money for the arts, humanities, transportation, abortion, loan forgiveness for students, loan forgiveness for socially disadvantaged farmers. You also have a provision of 15 weeks of paid vacation leave for federal employees. And then you've got earmarks in there for hospitals in New Jersey, Rhode Island, Delaware, plus the big $350 billion blue state bailout. This bill is not fair to people who are truly hurting because of COVID. It is not fair to our children and grandchildren and future generations because they're the ones that are going to see their tax rates go up when the bill comes due.
Now, the next segment is particularly interesting. She says Democrats want people to suffer. And then she talks about the blue state bailout. And she gets pushback on both those points from the Fox News anchor who says, hey, wait a minute. Is it fair to say Democrats want people to suffer? And he says, wait a minute, you're talking about blue state bailout. You're getting $6 billion in the state of Tennessee. Texas is getting much more than that. Texas is getting over $20 billion. Are you sure this is a blue state bailout? And then she goes back to her regular talking points. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Marsha Blackburn.
I'm going to ask you about the debt, which we haven't heard that word a lot lately in just a moment. But the president, hailed it as there's the debt clock right there. I mean, we're at $23 trillion or so, and it's just zipping on it. It never stops.
Yes.
At the same time, despite what you just said, 18 million Americans unemployed, 8 million jobs not coming back, 40 million Americans can't meet rent, they say. So the president says that this is so important in order to help those people beyond coronavirus. What do you say to that?
Relief should be targeted, temporary, and timely. The Democrats did not want timely relief prior to the election. They wanted people to suffer. And Nancy Pelosi told us why. She said because they felt like it would help them win the elections.
Do you think it really is fair? Senator, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you think it really is fair to say that Democrats wanted people to suffer? They don't want people to suffer.
They delayed relief when people were saying we desperately need relief. They delayed money to small businesses when small businesses were saying we need another round of PPP. That was a choice they made. As I said, there were 5 COVID bills that were bipartisan bills. There is one that is on party line, and 91% of the bill does not affect COVID. 9% of the bill affects COVID. So, whether you want to say it was fair or not fair, it is an action they took, and it is an admission that they have made. So I think it was just really unfortunate that was their choice. Now, people are saying those that are unemployed desperately need help. We know the jobs market is coming back. Let's help individuals bridge this gap. Let's come around them and support them when they need these jobs. Let's cheer for these employers that are opening their doors and getting back to work, and people that are getting back to work, and help them with that process. But do you really need to bail out the blue states that have mismanaged their funds and have mismanaged their pensions? Do you really want to put money now into arts and humanities? I think that's the question.
Okay. But you also know, your state gets $6 billion, Florida gets $16 billion, Texas gets $27 billion, so red states get a lot of money too.
And in the final segment, Senator Blackburn emphasizes the point that it is, I quote, immoral to continue to pile debt on our children and grandchildren. So since Senator Marsha Blackburn is concerned about our children and grandchildren, hey, let's hear what she has to say. Let me know whether you agree with her or whether you think it's more important for those who are the most vulnerable amongst us to get help now, to put food on the table, to keep the lights on, to make rent, because individuals in travel, leisure, entertainment, and hospitality have lost their jobs permanently. Let's roll the tape and hear from Senator Blackburn.
And working on the debt, of course, when I went to Congress, waste, fraud, and abuse, drawing attention to that was our project that we were working on. It is immoral to continue to pile debt on our children and grandchildren, to know that they're going to have to find a way to pay for this. It is selfish not to sit down and work this out so that we are not adding to the debt. There are all sorts of good things that you can do with money, but we have to remember the federal government only has money that the taxpayer sends to them. Hardworking taxpayers earn this money. And as Margaret Thatcher would have said, socialism is fine until you run out of other people's money. And this continuing to say we're going to pick winners and losers with federal government money, which is taxpayer money, is completely inappropriate, and yes, it does need to stop.
That's it, everyone. Let me know if you think the $1.9 trillion package is a waste of money, if it's going to hurt future generations, and what you think the long-term impact is of this $1.9 trillion stimulus. Will it result in political ramifications where the two sides stop talking to each other? Will it result in economic implications where essentially there'll be more inflation, where we could see a broadening of all the debt, where we could see a weakening of the US dollar, where things now suddenly cost much more to purchase because of an overheating of the economy? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thank you so much for watching. Please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications. I can assure you that Senator Joe Manchin, there he is, and also Senator Marsha Blackburn, as well as the one and only Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, when they watch Ignition Time, they click the like button, they subscribe, they have enabled notifications. I know this because they told me that personally. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. Bye.